Have you ever walked into a room with a smile that stretches from ear to ear, hoping to win people over? You try so hard to be liked, but what if I told you that people can sense fake love from a mile away? What happens when your whole life becomes a performance, and you try so hard to avoid conflict that you lose who you really are? It's more than just a mask. It's a trap. And before you know it, the people around you start pulling away, not because you did anything wrong, but because they can't trust the version of you that's been hiding behind a smile. There's something deeply broken in a person who would rather betray themselves than risk disappointing others. Could that be you? Let's talk about the danger of living for approval and how it's robbing you of your true identity. Some of us walk into rooms with a smile so wide, it stretches from ear to ear. You're trying to be liked, trying to please everyone. You compliment, you agree, and you do everything you can to avoid ruffling feathers. But let me tell you something that might be uncomfortable. People can smell fake love from a mile away. No matter how well-dressed, well-spoken, or well-meaning you are, if your kindness is rooted in fear rather than truth, it will eventually breed resentment, not just in others, but in you too. There's a danger in trying too hard to be liked by everyone. The moment you make pleasing people your goal, your entire life becomes a performance. And here's the kicker. When your whole existence is a performance, people stop seeing you as a person. They start seeing a mask, and the moment they feel they can't trust your smile, they'll begin to question everything behind it. Have you ever noticed that? You may think you're winning hearts, but all they feel is confusion. Why is this person always smiling, even when things are wrong? Why do they never disagree? What are they hiding? That suspicion starts to grow quietly in the background, and before you know it, people begin to distance themselves from you, not because you did something wrong, but because they realize you were never real with them. Here's the truth. There's something deeply broken in a person who would rather betray themselves than risk disappointing others. This brokenness leaks out into your relationships, your words, and your tone, and people pick up on it. They feel it. You might think you're avoiding conflict, but what you're really doing is avoiding honesty. And here's the painful part. Honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, is the only thing that builds lasting connections. You can't fake that. You can't manufacture it with sweet gestures or cute quotes. People crave truth, not performance. I'm not asking you to be rude or cold. But when your kindness is a mask for your fear of rejection, it's manipulation. And nobody likes to be manipulated. You become the person who nods at every opinion, who laughs at jokes you don't find funny, who overpraises people hoping they'll return the favor. And eventually, people start losing respect for you. Not because you're weak, but because you're unclear. And unclear people are often seen as unsafe people. So, what does real love look like? It tells the truth, gently but firmly. It says, I care about you, but I won't lie to you. It says, I want peace, but not at the cost of my soul. And when you live this way, with honest love, some people will walk away, but the ones who stay will love you for the right reasons. They'll love you because you showed them who you really are, not the version you thought they wanted. Too many people secretly hate you not because of your mistakes, but because your presence feels hollow. They don't hate the real you. They hate the version you thought you had to be, the fake you. When you live to impress others, you become a prisoner. You lose your voice, your backbone, and sooner or later, they'll see through it. God didn't create you to be a mirror of others' expectations. He made you to be a light. And a light doesn't ask permission to shine. It doesn't change colors depending on who's watching. It just stands firm, bold, and unashamed. That's what the world needs more of. People who are kind because they care, not because they're scared. People who speak truth with grace, who know when to say yes and when to say no, and who aren't afraid of being disliked because they know their worth doesn't come from popularity, it comes from purpose. If you're constantly chasing the approval of others, you will live exhausted and misunderstood. But when you choose to be authentic, when you let go of the need to be liked and instead embrace the calling to be real, you might lose a few admirers, but you'll gain something much greater: peace. And that peace will guard your heart. It will draw the right people to you and protect you from the silent hatred that grows in fake relationships. Don't trade your truth for temporary applause, because the people clapping for your performance will be the same ones who walk away when the curtain falls. So let them see the real you, even if it's not perfect, because real is rare and rare is valuable. Have you ever wondered why some people treat you differently now? Why their tone has changed? Why their eyes don't light up like they used to when you walk into the room? It's not because you hurt them. You didn't. You've been growing, praying more, focusing on your goals, and leaving behind old habits. Still, there's that tension, that distance. It's not because of what you've done to them. It's because of what you've done for yourself. When you start changing your life, not everyone will cheer. Some people will hate you not loudly, but quietly, in glances, ignored messages, that strange energy that fills the air when you talk about your goals. But here's the truth. It's not that you've become arrogant. It's that your growth reminds them of their stagnation. If you've found this message meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and comment Amen below. Let's keep this conversation going. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel for more life-changing content that will help you walk boldly in your truth. As we continue from where we left off, let's dive deeper into the reality that your growth can sometimes feel like a threat to others, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something right. When you start to shine, it's not just your own progress you're witnessing. For some, it's a reminder of their own lack of progress. So, how do you navigate that uncomfortable space? Let's explore this further. You've probably heard people say, "I want you to succeed." But if you look closely, what they actually mean is, succeed, but not beyond me. They want you to grow, but not in a way that challenges their comfort zone. They encourage discipline, but only to a point. If you're too disciplined, it might make them feel lazy. They'll cheer for you being focused, but not so much that it forces them to question how they're spending their own time. In short, your improvement exposes their excuses. It brings to light the things they've been avoiding in their own lives. And instead of confronting that discomfort, it's easier to resent you for it. Those who once celebrated your success may start to compete with you not openly, but quietly in their spirits. You'll feel it in subtle ways. The jokes that carry a sharp edge, the compliments that feel forced, the way they downplay your progress like your obedience to God is just a phase. But here's the truth. It's not about you. It's about what you represent. You represent everything they're not ready to become. You represent effort, change, and discipline. And for someone still married to comfort, that's a threat. Think about it. When you're walking in the darkness and someone suddenly turns on a light, your first instinct isn't always gratitude, is it? Often, it's discomfort. That bright light stings your eyes. It exposes the mess in the room, and most people would rather destroy the light than clean up the mess. That's what happens when your life starts to shine. Your consistency shows their lack of it. Your strength highlights their weakness. And without even saying a word, you make them feel small, not because you've tried to, but because they've refused to grow. This is why jealousy is never really about you. It's a mirror reflecting what someone else is lacking. They don't hate your joy. They hate that it reminds them of their bitterness. They don't hate your peace. They hate that they can't find it themselves. They don't hate your discipline. They hate that it's something they know they need, but won't commit to. And guess what? It's easier for them to judge your progress than to confront their own procrastination. But here's the key. You can't shrink to make others comfortable. You weren't called to dim your light just because someone else refuses to turn on theirs. There will always be people who can't handle your growth, not because you've outgrown them, but because they've refused to grow at all. And as painful as it is, you have to be willing to let them go. You have to be ready to walk alone, misunderstood, talked about, even hated for the sake of your calling. Don't apologize for becoming who God made you to be. Don't feel guilty for healing. Don't feel ashamed for wanting more from life than just survival. You weren't made to stay stuck just so someone else won't feel insecure. You weren't made to carry others' comfort on your back while you're trying to climb. Sometimes, the mountain is lonely not because people don't love you, but because they don't love what climbing requires. And here's the truth. This isn't about being better than anyone else. This isn't about pride. It's about purpose. It's about refusing to die in a place you were only meant to pass through. It's about honoring God with your time, your gifts, your potential. And if that makes someone uncomfortable, that's between them and God. Keep growing anyway. Keep going anyway. Let the silent hate speak louder than fake love ever could. Because the ones who are meant to walk with you will rise to your level. And those who can't, let them fall away. If your growth causes someone else's hate, it only proves how necessary your growth was. You might think you're just being honest. You speak your mind, tell it like it is. You don't sugarcoat the truth. Yes, there's strength in that. There's courage. But honesty without love can feel like cruelty. And when people start to secretly hate you, it's not always because you were wrong. It's because they remember how your truth made them feel. There's a way to carry truth that builds people up, and there's a way to carry it that tears people down. You can hold a sword to protect, or you can swing it to wound. It's the same sword, but the heart behind it makes all the difference. Some of you pride yourselves on keeping it real, but in the process, you've lost your gentleness. You say, "I just tell the truth." But if that truth isn't wrapped in grace, people will stop listening, not because the truth isn't needed, but because the tone wasn't kind. Truth by itself is powerful, but power without restraint is dangerous. You can be completely right in what you say, and still completely wrong in how you say it. People won't remember every word you speak. They'll remember the feeling, the sting, the humiliation, the coldness in your voice. And over time, that memory hardens into bitterness. They may smile to your face, but inside, a wall goes up. One day, you'll find yourself standing in a room full of people who no longer trust you with their hearts, not because you lied, but because your truth cut too deep. It's not enough to speak truth. You must carry it with compassion. You have to ask yourself, is this moment about proving a point or healing a person? Am I sharing this truth because I love them or because I want to feel superior? That matters. Stay tuned, because coming up next, we'll talk about how the heart behind the truth makes all the difference. and how to walk in your calling with love and grace without compromising who you are. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment, amen, below if this message spoke to you. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button for more life-changing content. After exploring how our truth can sometimes push people away, let's now dive deeper into how our words and the way we share them can truly impact our relationships. The truth delivered in love is a gift. One pushes people away, and the other draws them closer. Some of you have lost relationships, not because you were dishonest, but because you were harsh. You might have called it tough love, but in reality, it was just toughness. Now, you wonder why people don't confide in you anymore, why they avoid deep conversations, why they hold back. In their minds, you're not a safe space, you're not a shelter, you're a storm. And, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying truth should be hidden or watered down. We live in a world that is starving for truth, surrounded by lies and deception. But the answer to this isn't sharp tongues, it's soft hearts. We need people who can speak the truth directly, but without being destructive. People who can confront, but not condemn. That's the balance we need to find the spirit we must carry. Even Jesus, when dealing with the broken, the sinful, and the lost, didn't approach them with condemnation. Yes, he spoke the truth, but always through the lens of mercy. Imagine if Jesus had crushed people with his knowledge. He could have done that, but instead, he chose to lift them with love. That's the model we must follow. Not just truth tellers, but truth healers. You may be surrounded by silence right now. People aren't calling back. Relationships feel strained. You feel isolated. You may be tempted to think it's because people can't handle your honesty. But what if it's not the truth that pushed them away? What if it's how you delivered it? What if they needed correction, but you gave them criticism? What if they needed a hand, but you gave them a hammer? The goal of speaking truth is not to win arguments, but to win hearts. You can't do that by wounding people in the name of being real. Yes, be bold. Yes, be clear. But never forget to be kind. Kindness opens ears. It softens walls. It makes the truth easier to receive. When people secretly hate you for your words, take a moment to reflect not on the content, but on the character behind them. Ask yourself, did I speak as a friend or as a judge? Did I correct in love or criticize in frustration? Did I make space for healing or leave a scar? These questions matter more than the applause for being right. Don't just be known for your honesty. Be known for the heart behind it. Because truth without love isn't truth at all. It's noise. And the world already has enough noise. What it needs are people who can speak the truth, like a bomb strong enough to break chains, gentle enough to heal wounds. If your truth isn't healing anyone, it may not be truth at all. It may just be pride in disguise. Have you ever noticed how some people slowly begin to pull back from you? Not all at once, but little by little. You'll be talking, and their eyes will drift away. You'll share your story, and they'll nod, but their heart won't be in it. You wonder what changed. You replay your conversations in your head, and sometimes the answer is subtle but real. You talk too much about yourself. Not because you're arrogant, and not because you mean harm, but somewhere along the way, your need to be seen started overpowering your need to connect. There's something about the human heart. It doesn't just want to be impressed. It wants to be understood. People don't come close to you because you shine. They come close because you see them. But when every conversation becomes a monologue, when every moment becomes a stage for your opinions, accomplishments, struggles, and stories, people begin to feel small around you. And even if they never say it out loud, a silent frustration grows in their heart. They begin to feel invisible, unheard, unvalued. and eventually they step back not in anger, but in weariness. You might think you're sharing, inspiring even, but there's a fine line between telling your story and making yourself the center of every story. And when that line is crossed too often, resentment begins to build. People don't hate you. They hate the feeling that your voice matters more than theirs. They hate that every time they open up, you interrupt. Every time they try to share, you one-up them. Every time they need to be heard, you hijack the moment and bring it back to you. The hard truth is this: attention-seeking is not always loud. Sometimes it's subtle. It's the humble brag, the self-deprecating joke that's really just fishing for praise. It's the need to remind people of what you've been through, what you've accomplished, and what you've learned over and over again, until it becomes less about blessing others and more about boosting your own image. I say this not to condemn you, but to convict you. We all fall into this at times. We all want to feel important. We all want to be heard. But real connection is never built on performance. It's built on presence. It's not about how much you say. It's about how deeply you listen. When you give people your silence, your focus, your eye contact, your patience, you give them dignity. You give them space to be real. And that space is sacred. You may be the most talented person in the room, the most experienced, or the most knowledgeable. But if people don't feel seen around you, they'll never feel safe. And where there's no safety, there can be no closeness. That's why some people secretly distance themselves. This journey of growth can sometimes feel isolating. But it's important to remember that authenticity is key to building true connection. Stay tuned as we continue exploring how to navigate this beautiful but challenging journey ahead. And as always, if this content resonates with you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep receiving more empowering messages. It's not that they hate you, but being around you makes them feel like they don't matter. And it's not just about talking too much. It's about the spirit behind your words. Are you speaking to serve others, or are you speaking to show off? Are you encouraging the people around you, or elevating yourself? Are your words building bridges, or are they just creating pedestals for you to stand on? These questions matter more than you realize. Even if your words are true, and even if your story is powerful, the spirit behind them will always reveal your heart, and people can feel it. They may not be able to explain it, but they can sense when your presence is more about performance than connection. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room to be remembered. You don't have to prove your worth through endless speeches. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply ask someone how they're doing and mean it. To listen without planning your next sentence. To sit in someone else's story without needing to insert your own. That kind of humility is rare. The kind that puts others first. The kind that honors their voice. It doesn't rush toward the spotlight, but it's what builds real relationships. And it's also what protects you from becoming the kind of person people secretly pull away from. So, if you've noticed people growing distant, don't just ask yourself, why don't they like me? Ask yourself, do they feel valued by me? Don't just examine your words, examine your motives. Sometimes, it's not what you said that caused the distance. It's what they didn't get a chance to say. That silence, the feeling of being overlooked, can quietly grow into resentment over time. You don't need to dominate every conversation to be powerful. You don't need to be the focus of attention to earn respect. Sometimes, the most powerful person in the room is the one who listens the most. Listening is love, and love, not attention, is what truly holds people close. If you want people to stop secretly hating you, stop trying to be interesting, and start being interested. ask more questions, listen more deeply, and be present in every moment. Being present is a form of love that speaks louder than words. Some of you are wondering why certain people no longer trust you, why they hesitate when speaking with you, why the warmth has left their words. It wasn't one big betrayal. It wasn't an obvious sin. It wasn't open conflict. No, it was inconsistency. It was promises made, but never kept. Words spoken, but never backed up by action. It was showing up strong one day and disappearing the next. Over time, the quiet damage of these small inconsistencies begins to add up. People may not confront you, but they notice. They notice when you say you'll be there, and you're not. They notice when you apologize, but nothing changes. They notice when your words are big, but your follow-through is small. They may still smile. They may still talk with you. But in their hearts, they've begun to pull away. And the most dangerous part, you might not even realize it's happening until it's too late. Trust isn't always lost in one single moment. Sometimes it dies slowly in missed calls and forgotten commitments, in the gap between what you say and what you do. It dies in the tension people feel when they no longer know which version of you will show up. Will it be the focused version, the loving version, or the distracted, defensive, distant version? When you're unpredictable, people stop feeling safe around you. And when safety disappears, relationships begin to suffocate. We live in a world full of big words. People say things they don't mean. They promise things they can't deliver. But God never called you to be a person of empty declarations. He called you to be faithful. And faithfulness isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. Can people count on you? Can they trust that your yes means yes and your no means no? Or are your words just noise full of passion in the moment, but empty when tested by time? Some of you start well. You get inspired, make plans, set goals, commit. But the moment things get tough, you vanish. The moment it requires sacrifice, you forget. And that's when people begin to realize they can't build with you, they can't rely on you. And without ever saying it out loud, they move you from close to cautious. They don't hate you. They just stop depending on you. You say you love them, but love without consistency feels like manipulation. You say you're loyal, but loyalty that wavers under pressure isn't loyalty at all. It's convenience. Now that we've explored the power of authenticity and consistency, let's dive deeper into understanding how small changes in our behavior can lead to stronger, more meaningful connections in our relationships. Stay tuned for the next part of this message. Let's continue this powerful journey, exploring why growth and consistency can shake up our relationships and the reality of walking in purpose. You say you want to grow, but growth requires repetition, not just excitement. People aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for alignment. Alignment between your voice and your values, your intentions and your integrity, between what you say you are and how you actually live. This is why inconsistency hurts more than failure. Failure is honest. Inconsistency is deceptive. It gives people hope one moment, only to pull it away the next. That cycle of hope and disappointment slowly hardens hearts. This is when people stop opening up to you. This is when they stop including you. They'll say, "I'm fine." But deep down, they've already decided, "I won't trust them again." And maybe you didn't mean to hurt them. Maybe you were just busy. Maybe life got in the way. But over time, good intentions without follow-through start to feel like lies. And if you're not careful, you'll become someone who's always speaking about potential, but never walking in purpose. Always making declarations, but never doing the work. Always apologizing, but never changing. When someone feels like they have to guess your character, they won't stay close for long. So, if people are pulling away from you, if they seem distant or guarded, don't immediately assume they're disloyal. Ask yourself, have I been consistent? Have I made promises I didn't keep? Have I become someone who is more inspiring in speech than dependable in action? Because the people around you are watching. Not your passion, but your patterns. Not your vibe, but your values. It's not about being perfect. It's about being steady. When your life begins to match your words, you'll find that the same people who backed away will begin to lean in again. Trust can be rebuilt. Relationships can be restored. But only when consistency becomes your new language. When people can trust your silence as much as your speech, your absence as much as your presence, that's when they'll stop secretly hating you and start truly respecting you. You might not even realize it, but sometimes the reason people dislike you has nothing to do with what you've done to them. It's everything to do with what your life reminds them of. You're not loud. You're not arrogant. You're not trying to offend anyone. In fact, you're just trying to grow. You're trying to walk in discipline. Live in peace. Serve with joy. Stay consistent. Stay focused. And still, people keep their distance. Still, they talk behind your back. Still, you feel that strange energy when you enter a room, like you don't belong, like your presence changed something. And you're right. It did. When you start healing, you threaten those who are still hiding. When you show up with peace, you disturb those who live in chaos. When you grow, when you elevate, when you carry yourself with a sense of direction and self-control, you don't even have to say anything. Your life becomes a mirror, and not everyone likes what it shows them. Some people are at war with themselves. They've buried their potential, ignored their convictions, silenced the voice of God in their own hearts for so long that when you show up, doing what they refuse to do, it offends them. Not because you're wrong, but because you're proof that it was always possible. You don't remind them of failure. You remind them of the fact that they've settled. You're not their enemy. But when someone is uncomfortable with truth, they'll treat anyone who carries it like a threat. That's why they roll their eyes at your joy. That's why they mock your discipline. That's why they say, "You've changed." But what they really mean is, "You've grown, and I haven't." Your consistency reminds them of their compromise. Your clarity reminds them of their confusion. Your strength reminds them of their excuses. And that silent hatred, it's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it shows up as sarcasm. Sometimes it shows up as passive-aggressive jokes. Sometimes it's silence where there used to be support. But if you listen closely, what they're really saying is, "I don't like what I see when I'm around you because I see what I'm not." And instead of rising up and growing themselves, they push you down, hoping that will ease their discomfort. But don't let it shake you. Don't dim your light just because it exposes shadows in other people. Don't shrink your presence to make insecure hearts feel safe. God didn't call you to comfort their mediocrity. He called you to walk in purpose, and purpose will always offend passivity. You can't please everyone and walk in truth at the same time. One will require you to compromise the other. You must understand, you're not shining to make others feel small. You're shining to be faithful. You're not rising to boast. You're rising because obedience requires elevation. You're not getting stronger to prove anything. You're getting stronger because your calling demands it. And if that causes people to distance themselves, let them. Your life was never meant to fit into spaces where growth isn't welcome. You weren't created to live small so others feel big. You weren't made to blend in with people who refuse to be honest about their own struggles. And you definitely weren't placed on this earth to tone down your calling for the comfort of others who've grown comfortable in their compromise. Let them feel what they need to feel. That discomfort isn't your burden. It's their invitation to change. The truth is, sometimes the only sermon people will hear is your life, your work ethic, your purity, your self-control, your peace, your growth, your refusal to gossip, your hunger for more. And that sermon will either draw them to repentance or drive them to resentment. But you can't be responsible for the choice they make. So when people secretly hate you, don't be so quick to apologize for who you're becoming. Don't start questioning your worth, your process, or your decisions. Ask yourself instead, is my growth making the wrong people uncomfortable or the right people convicted? Because there's a difference. Some people aren't supposed to walk with you into your next season. They're not your enemies, but their insecurity would destroy your peace if you carried them forward. Let God deal with them. Your job is to keep walking. Yes, it hurts to be misunderstood. Yes, it stings when people twist your intentions, but your job is not to make everyone like you. Your job is to walk in the truth you've been given. Your job is to be faithful with what God put in your hands. And if that means you're hated for it, so be it. This wraps up the message. Stay true to your calling and keep shining in your authenticity, no matter who's watching. Keep walking in the truth that you've been given.